gentlemen, it's Beatty. It's been a while. So today I am going to go over the new big picture guide. If you don't know what that is, I made a post, Jesus, 2.5 years ago on r/getting bigger, explaining the basics of penis enlargement and how they fit together in the grand scheme of things. Now that I know 3 to 5 times more than I did when I started getting bigger, I thought it'd be in the best interest of everyone if I made my own or redid it. So here we are. But first, Patreon, if you want to support me there. There may be coaching spots, probably not. Let's see, peak male physique for penis enlargement aids that are not needed but can help. I have been tweaking my mixing for the lotion, so it's gonna look a little different than it is in the pictures, but it's the same product. Second, or third, Vigor, our stimulant-free nitric oxide boosting pre-workout, is available on Amazon. Very limited stock on the Buy Then Sups right now. You guys are buying it like madmen. So, first of all, thank you for that. But if you want it, you might want to get moving. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just look through my post, because that's basically all this video is gonna be, is that post auditory, and then go from there. All right. So as I said in the video, my name on Reddit is BD. I've been doing penis enlargement since, 2013, and I had to take a break because it got too large for my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and I picked it up again about December of 2019 and started writing posts there, and then eventually made r/getting bigger, where I have made a bunch of content for penis enlargement. Or like many others, I started on dedicated forums, lurking, but as I got more accustomed with penis enlargement, I began questioning why it works on a physiological level. And because if we know how it works in the body exactly, we can optimize it, and then we can get actual gains, and then we can also cut out the crap that probably doesn't work. So that's been my focus for the past year and a half. And I'm not like saying my stuff is the be all end all. All I'm saying is that this has scientific backing, and it's not much different than what other people have been telling you. Mine's just slightly more scientifically sound. So this video is talking about just the basics. I'm not going to be getting into techniques, just the 3 main principles of penis enlargement and how to make your penis bigger. But first, we need to understand why the penis can get bigger. So, as you all probably learned in your first year of biology class, living organisms respond and adapt to stimulus. The larger and more often the stimulus occurs, the greater the adaptation. Now, I'm not talking about natural selection. I'm talking about what your body does to compensate for stress. So like if you work out a lot, work your biceps, then your body is going to build bigger biceps to be better able to handle that load. Therefore, we can trick our bodies into building ridiculously large biceps when we slowly increase the weight over time. Now, the penis is not exactly like that. It is not skeletal muscle. However, some of those principles apply to the penis. In the grand scheme of things, penis enlargement is just causing these tissues to adapt like any other tissue would adapt to stress. This is known as Davis's law for soft tissue reformation. And I will probably throw something up on the screen here just so you can see what I'm talking about. But that graph basically shows that either too much work causes scarring, fibrosis, and edema. Edema is just swelling under the skin. Too little of work causes the tissue to degrade, become weak and brittle. And then if you do the same amount of work over the same amount of time, you will keep the tissues as is. And if you do slightly above that and cause the tissues to fatigue but not damage them, you'll see a constant change in soft tissue size, in our case, penis size, and penile performance. Basically, all I'm saying is that we need very little strain work compared to what we used to think 10, 15 years ago, where these guys would be doing 2 hours of hanging on 20 pounds of tension, or 2 hours of pumping, or 2 hours of clamping. You get the idea. Excuse me. If you guys follow me long enough, you know I burp in every video. We need actually much less than that. And like, from what I've been doing, your length work is going to need to be less than an hour in most cases, and sometimes even your girth work is going to need to be less than 10 minutes if you have everything optimized. And I'll touch more on that later, like later in this video series. But in general, the amount of time you'll spend touching your penis, trying to make it bigger, is going to be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. That's much less than companies like Size Genetics, for example, would tell you, or Phallus and Forte, because they don't fully understand the scientific backing and what we're trying to achieve. So what are we targeting when we do penis enlargement? It really comes down to two different kinds of tissues, or two different parts of the penis, which are made up of two different kinds of tissues. One is the tunica albuginea. This is a sleeve. This is a sleeve of connective tissue that wraps around the penis. This is what causes your erection to be firm. What I predominantly look for is how efficiently we can increase the flexibility of it. Since it is collagen, it's very flexible in nature compared to bone, obviously. So that's one way we can increase size relatively fast. However, collagen also has a decent propensity for growth. So as your muscles get stronger, your tendons will get bigger to compensate for that newfound strength. Since it's collagen, the same stimulus rules will apply to the penis, at least for the tunica albuginea. To put it bluntly, the tunica albuginea is just a sleeve to hold pressure. The corpus cavernosum, which is essentially a big blood sponge or a sinusoidal endothelial tissue, is just easier to say it's a big blood sponge because in practice, that's all it is. When an arousal event happens, that thing starts filling with blood. So the sponge gets bigger and bigger with more blood. That causes pressure to exert itself onto the tunica albuginea, which causes it to stretch more and more until it reaches the point where it cannot stretch anymore. That would be your erection or max erection size. Now, this relationship between connective tissue, the sleeve, and the blood sponge, the endothelial smooth muscle, is what's going to cause or determine your max hardness and max size. The more connective tissue you have, the bigger you can be while erect, but you need to be able to fill that space up with blood. So that's where the main theory starts. We need to optimize for these tissues. Now, disclaimer, I know this is not directly from a research study on a penis. However, all I did was break down the penis into its practical parts that are more well-researched. Since these tissues are found throughout the body, soft tissue, collagen fibrils, and endothelial smooth muscle, we can apply the same stimulus from outside the body or outside of the penis to the penis, and will have similar effects on the penis since it's just all the same parts of the whole. Now, there are multiple ways you can manipulate the strength and size of your penis. The easiest way is to increase performance. So that would mean bigger, harder boners. If you can get a bigger boner with your existing tissue, you're just maximizing it. It will happen much faster than building up new tissue. However, that's going to be a harder wall that you hit. Now, this adaptation response is in the matter of weeks to months, while actual growth takes months to years. Granted, it is not as slow as I'm making it out to be. Most of you guys will probably gain an inch in length and up to an inch in girth in your first year. But after that point, it's probably going to be about a half an inch in length and half an inch in girth. But another quick note on tissue performance, another form of tissue performance for soft tissues and collagen-based tissues is flexibility. The more flexible your corpus cavernosum is, the bigger it can get right now, right? So you can have the same amount of tissue, but you're able to stretch it more, therefore you can fill it with more blood, therefore your erection is longer. This flexibility response is different for everyone. You could see anywhere from a 2% gain to a 20% gain in 12 to 18 months just on flexibility alone. However, you have no real idea of what that flexibility response is. For example, I'm a pretty stiff guy in general when it comes to flexibility and stuff, but that has not stopped me from gaining. One of my friends in this, he is a very flexible individual and he might be a hyper responder, but he's also taken a few things to speed up his gains. Not that I recommend you do any kind of peptides to increase this stuff, but that's what he did. And this change in flexibility is relatively static. So unless you get super sick, you're not going to lose any size. All you have to do is make sure you get frequent erections, and that will stretch out the tissues enough to keep this flexibility. So it's use it or lose it. The old way to think about this stuff was either focusing on length or on girth, as that was the target desire. However, I am proposing there are 3 ways to target the penis. So we have 3 types of stimulus. I call this elongation, or I call these elongation, expansion, and controlled hypoxia. Elongation is as simple as it sounds. It's where you just stretch your penis, okay? And I talked about this already in a few videos, but there's a certain rate of elongation you want to hit every session and after your sessions. That would be 4 to 6% longer under strain. So that would indicate optimal fatigue. And then after your sessions, you want to be about 2 to 3% longer. Then that's going to be your main indicator if you had sufficient work moving forward. But these ways to apply elongation can happen in many different ways. The most straightforward way is just pulling straight out on it, whether it be with a device or with your hands. But there's an umbrella case for elongation that I call tunica malleability, which is more important for the girth work than it is for length work, it would seem. Next up, we have expansion, where you force more blood into the penis than it can hold naturally, or what your erection response produces naturally. So most common way of doing this is with a penis pump. However, you can do it with your hands. It just takes a bit of grip strength. This causes a bit of a hypoxic stimulant, which means you're going to get an angiogenic effect. But that pressure buildup causes the capacity of these chambers of the corpus cavernosum to increase in size. And that flexibility in the tissue is going to increase faster than it is going to grow more tissue. On top of that, that expansion also pushes the tunica albuginea to its limits. So you can get a bit of collagen fatigue as well. It's not going to be efficient as elongation work or tunica malleability, but it will cause changes in the tunica albuginea. You're best off pairing the two for maximum gains. And like I said, pumping is the most common way to do this. I recommend almost everyone pump in some capacity. And then last, we have controlled hypoxia. And if you know anything about physical therapy, there is a technique called blood flow restriction therapy. What that is you limit the blood flow out of the muscle group, in our case, the penis. This causes deoxygenated blood to build up in the chambers of the penis. That type of stress signals your body to release a bunch of growth factors to build more blood vessels, so that way there's more oxygen around in case it happens again. A lot of guys will say this is the cream of the crop for girth gains. I'm going to say it depends where you're at. If you have a lot of tunica albuginea compared to blood holding tissue, then it's going to be great to build up and fill out that space. But if you don't have any more space to fill in, then it's going to be relatively pointless. All you're doing is making your erections harder and harder. I mean, granted, that's great if you need it, but I'm assuming most of you guys would like to get bigger rather than just harder and harder. So there's that. Now we call this in general clamping because there's a small little device called a cable clamp that you put around your penis and then stimulate blood flow. However, I recommend cock rings for this, as it's a little easier on the skin for one, and two, it matches the shape of the penis better. So you can get better occlusion with it. The relationship of the three is going to depend on how flexible you are and what your erection quality is like. But in general, if you're going for length, you're going to want a mix of elongation work and expansion to maximize the collagen buildup of the tunica albuginea. And then once your stretch length is much longer than your erect length, just off the top of my head for an example, you would want to switch to clamping to fill in that tissue with a lot of expansion work to really optimize the pressure you can build up in the tunica albuginea, or in the corpus cavernosum, to exert pressure on the tunica albuginea. That's going to cover it for today, guys. I don't know how much I actually covered, because to me this is basic, but to you guys it might be a lot. So I want to take it slow and build off of it from there. If you like what I do, like this video, subscribe. Vigor if you want to support me financially, same with Patreon and peakmalphysique.com. Vigor is on Amazon and LeviathanSups.com. This is Beatty, and I hope I'll see you soon.